Very good morning to you. As always, we're grateful to you for joining us here this morning. This is Global Television. We're live in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Of course, this is Global Morning. I am Uyi Agmofwebe. Again, we appreciate you for making that decision every other day to join us on Global Morning. It's a great Tuesday, a second business day, or if you like, second weekday actually. But we're grateful for gift of life, and of course, there's no better time to be alive than now, as they say. As always, we'll get you engaged and informed this morning in the course of the program. Of course, we'll talk about the big stories. We'll look at the papers for you, bring you headline one at a time. I mean, several headlines actually across news dailies. We'll also take our time to motivate you. Of course, all thanks to Ramsey Enokago, who brings you heart-to-heart inspirational on the program 7 days a week. We'll look at what's trending on social media, and by that I mean social buzz with Ogochukwu Mobuno. But then we'll be looking at the tax laws as well today, which is something that has been, if you like, for many people a bit hazy. Most Nigerians today, home and abroad, do not seem to have a finger or even be clear as to what exactly the tax laws are about. Of course, we are very familiar with the controversies that trailed the passage of that law, I mean the bill, which is now a law, by the way. And there's so much of, if you like, misgiven about it. Of course, a lot of misconception as well as to what exactly real-time implementation of that law will be. But like my colleague Priscilla Obasi and I talked about here in passing yesterday, one thing is clear going forward: the Nigerian tax ecosystem, so to speak, will not remain the same now and always. We'll also take our time this morning to look at what is happening within the APC and the PDP. The PDP appears to be finding its groove again, even though we hear that all is still not well just yet with that party. Of course, there's litigation in front of it. The Turaki-led faction of the party is in court with the now Abdurrahman-led faction of the party, where, of course, the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, is the national leader of the party. Of course, there have been questions about the propriety or otherwise of that appellation, that designation, national leader. But again, it's Nigeria. The same way you have the governors being the respective leaders of the party across their states, and then you have the president being the leader of his party at the national level. It's quite a loaded portfolio, if you ask me. So we have so much of that to bring your way today in the course of the program. So if I were you, I'll stay here and ensure I do not move a muscle, as they say. We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll give you an insight into the number of doctors that have left this country by way of, if you like, brain drain, or what we now call the Jabba syndrome, in a 3-year period. Do stay with us. It's interesting to know that the last 10-15 years, not a handful of people, professionals in this case, have left this country. It's quite disturbing, all right, to know that most of these are some of the best hands, some of the best brains, some of the best minds, some of the most extensively experienced professionals that this country has ever seen. And today, they are nowhere close to the shores of our country. In fact, most of them are not even anywhere close to being on the continent of Africa. Report now says at least 4,600 medical doctors, 4,600 medical doctors have left this country in the last 3 years. Now you do the math. The report doesn't say 4,600 professionals or 4,600 Nigerians. It says 4,600 doctors. These are people who have been trained here on our soil. These are people in whom the country has invested so much. These are people to whom the country had looked looked up to in terms of finding solutions to some of the health specific challenges that we grapple with as a nation. But today, they are not here, which means they are not adding value here. That's just for a 3-year period. And then you ask yourself, how many more have we lost, so to speak, in the last 10 years? Well, those numbers will scare you, I can imagine, and I can also assure you. As always, they say it takes two to tango. I tried to tangle over myself, it didn't work. So I think it's time I seek help. Two heads, they say. Two good heads these days, they say, are better than one. So hopefully I can now tangle with Priscilla Obasi. Priscilla, it's good to see you. Can we now tangle?
Good morning, Uyi.
Good morning.
And good morning to our viewers. It's a beautiful Tuesday.
It is, I agree.
Comes with its own challenges, but we keep pushing.
Without chaos.
I had a very wonderful experience with a cabman, but that's a story for another day.
But we will have experiences. But at least they carry you to a place where you don't know.
Have you?
But it's good to see you, by the way.
Yes.
Just before, when you were waiting beside the camera, I was talking about how that it's scary when you look at the numbers of professionals who leave this country from time to time. The latest report was saying puts that figure at 4,600 medical doctors in 3 years. You are not just a Nigerian, you are not just a human being, you are a mother. You know what it means for you to seek medical care for your children.
Yeah.
So imagine if one of these 4,600 doctors, or some of them happen to be some of the doctors you have come to trust as a family over time. Will you move abroad with them?
Well, the thing is, we haven't gotten to that point where you go to the hospital and then they say, we don't have enough doctors on ground. It's almost like a national anthem now.
Right.
You need to receive the prayer every well-meaning Nigerian gets to pray every single day. I don't want to find myself in a situation where I'd have to, be in an emergency sort of situation, because you just know that you don't have capable hands. It's either you have so much of the money, if you are just that average Nigerian, which of course the larger percentage of Nigerians are falling into that category.
Bracket.
So you know that you are not guaranteed emergency response, and it's not just the hospital. Every kind of emergency response unit that exists in Nigeria doesn't give that urgency that is demanded of it. So in the medical sector, it's worse off because we're talking about health, right? And I kind of feel that, of course, it gets worse every single year.
Right.
People go to school now, go to medical school with the hope and the aim. People choose medicine as a course. I'm talking about JAMBite.
As a pathway to
live in the country. So you're not just talking about doctors that have, gotten to that point where, their things are no longer working.
At least they've been 10 years.
Exactly. But people are choosing that path to just japa. So it's sad. I don't know how our leaders feel. I don't believe it concerns them. Somewhere in my mind, I just feel like it doesn't really concern them because they find themselves in other parts of this world where our Nigerian doctors still attend to them. So they still get that treatment. As much as we hear that our doctors are doing well all over the world, they are representing well, they benefit from this, service you get. So how would it affect them? How would they understand? Because somehow they still interact with these people. It's sad because the people that it gets to really affect are the citizens, the ordinary Nigerian, those ones that depend on our public health services, our public health systems, and it keeps getting worse. We don't have a good. There's no state you look at right now and say, okay, I like the PHC, that's the primary health care of this particular state. I like this. It's always in a dilapidated state and looks like nobody cares. Nobody cares. A while ago we talked about how somebody was beaten to death by a snake. Right? And up till now,
a young 25-year-old lady,
and you would feel that, or you would think that after that scenario,
would have learned
our lessons. But we saw the buzz, it came, everybody was like, oh, we're going to do this. All of a sudden, we saw anti-venom pushed into hospitals, and afterwards, I can tell you that you can go to a hospital now. Maybe they've sold all of them.
Sold them to snake bite victims?
Well, that again is a question, and the answer is almost no, because you see that, okay, this attention has been shifted. Can we move on?
Exactly. Besides, there might now be demand.
Yes.
My landlord, by the way, had to quickly come do
Exactly. I need to eat. I need to do this. I need to do that. Let's result it. Let's help ourselves. And we're back to square one. We're back to that point where we're wondering
so we're not systemic, we're not strategic about the way we think around this thing.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I don't think we care. I don't think our leaders care. And for the citizens, I don't even know if they care, because you have to be consistent in speaking out if you want things to improve.
Right.
The moment you get tired, or the moment you feel, let them have their way. You have our responsibility. It's a lot of work, but we must ensure we do our own parts. That is where that's our own job to do, and then we leave the others to do theirs. But when we abandon our own parts and expect that these people that are used to wrong systems will automatically have a rethink one day and start to make things work, it will never work. So the onus lies on both citizens, especially with the kind of leaders we have, with the systems we have built in time past over the years. We have a lot of work to do. So we keep speaking, you keep talking. When you go to a place and things are not well, things are not the way it should be, try to talk. Just keep talking. And we hope and pray that, I don't know what to pray anymore.
Just start looking at real stuff.
Well.
What makes this interesting, Priscilla, is not just the exodus, as I like to call it, of these doctors, but it is the fact that a bad situation, an already very bad situation, is becoming worse, or even become worse. Because if you look at our health system, it's fragile by whatever definition or standard or metrics. And then you now have doctors also pull out in this number in a country where by UNICEF standard, we do not even come close to the doctor-patient ratio, just like we have with education as well. But with all of this, you realize that it leaves us in a far worse place. And like you said, we can't see clearly, or at least the government is not showing us what exactly it's doing to bridge this gap. For Federal Ministry of Health, that told us just a couple of weeks ago that, look, in 2025, what we got was 36 million naira for, if you like, by way of budgeting. All right, and you're wondering, was that supposed to be for the salaries of one doctor for 1 year, like a per annum salary bunched together, or what is it supposed to do really? But again, it's apparently symbolic of how much attention we do not pay to health in this country. And for a government that can, or a nation, so don't just make it a Tinubu government thing, for a nation that cannot deal with issues of health, especially at the primary level, for a nation that cannot attend to teething problems in education, let's not even go to infrastructure this morning, you realize that it's either we have resolved not to be serious, or we just want to pretend we're attending to the issues, while for the most part, the entire time, even all we're doing at best is treat symptoms.
Yeah, I think that's also where the issue of state and local government autonomy comes in, because we cannot keep relying on the federal government for things,
So who attends to the general hospitals? Who attends to local health facilities?
Local health facilities, and even at state level, I think state governors should also be able to lift the burdens of the federal government. So it's about accountability at the end of the day, because we hear that local governments have direct access now. States and even some states, of course, states. Most states, people will always cite a state like Abia State and say, they receive more budget right now. That is why it's working. And when they go to other states, it looks as if the budget is not going there. I don't know what happens.
And that's obviously false.
Obviously false. So how do we strike the balance? We need to get a good ratio and formula for these things. I don't think it's rocket science. The truth is, or the reality is, we have allocation, right? And it goes, and some states are already testifying to this. So money is being put into the system. That is a fact. So how is it spent? How is it used? Who is it used on? What is the priority?
What are the outcomes?
What are the outcomes? Exactly. So we need. It's all about accountability at the end of the day, right? Because I feel like some state governors just hide under the Tinubu umbrella to, because of
I thought umbrella was for PDP. Maybe they're using the Tinubu cap.
The Tinubu cap.
Right.
That's funny.
Very good to get the one cap. His emblem.
I don't know how big that cap is enough.
Especially during rainy season.
Okay, let's use the Tinubu's cap.
Okay.
The infinity cap. So because of the fact that Nigerians are almost always, centered to blaming the federal government. Some governors take advantage of that,
right,
and they misbehave.
And they push the blame.
They're doing fully well that Nigerians will not see me. Don't worry, our daddy is up there. So Baba is going to shield us, and because of this, the system keeps dilapidating. So Nigerians should know. I mean, we need to have all the knowledge to know that who to call out at different points. Who to hold responsible at different points. You can't keep saying, the federal government, Tinubu this, Tinubu that. It doesn't help anything.
Right.
Yeah. The earlier we realize who is responsible for what, and we can also lend our voices to bring in structure, because these people are on social media. Even they deny that they're not there, but they are there. I don't even know why we have leaders that are not on social media.
So I don't think it's a problem.
It's a problem, but if you can bring solution in your little way, via voicing out, whichever way you can, just do it. They listen, and would come to, would be able to get a solution at the end of the day.
Speaking of solution, I think there's another issue we have to deal with, which is the issue of security, or if you like, insecurity. All right, you and I have talked about how the ransom demand is now the norm. So nobody is even having the conversation around how extremely wrong, in fact, I dare say, satanic.
It's even as bad as people pay ransom now and they don't still get their loved ones. So
some
ransom right now is not even a guarantee.
Well, exactly, it's not a guarantee. Or like what the case is to be. When we hear that there are cases where the person who's supposed to, the concierge, maybe I should call them that, who's supposed to deliver the ransom money, in some cases are held back while the original captive is let off.
Wow.
All right, meanwhile the money is collected. But there's some very heart-wrenching story this morning. It's on the Punch newspaper where it says 6 billion naira ransom demand for Borno and Kaduna victims sparks security fears. 6 billion. Some prudent governors will do something substantial. I do not want to say a lot, something substantial for their state, at least in one local government area, or at least in one ward in a local government. But now that's what they're asking for, just for victims of, kidnapping in 2 states in Nigeria. I think it has become a shameful thing. This is not even so much about how that people are losing money. I think these criminals are just out to embarrass the country and make us look like a bunch of unserious governments, unserious people.
Well, some of those key politicians in the ruling party are saying, all of these things are coming because there's elections. After 2027, we will not see.
Of course, that was pointed to President of the Senate.
Yeah.
It didn't give us a date. That was a bit vague.
It says it's because of campaign.
Yeah, we should have seen a date like after election on Thursday, 16th.
When the president comes back into power, I'm speculating. By then, these people would know, okay, it's already too late, so go and rest for 4 years. And at that point, you will know that, you cannot frustrate the government again. It's not coming back again.
So whatever you do now is your loss.
Exactly. Whatever the case, it's a shame, right? And maybe our governors, our leaders have to come to that point where, okay, instead of using this money to do, carry out, development across the state or across wherever, maybe we use it for ransom, but sadly they don't even contribute to these ransoms. They leave this whole burden on the families. So
it's still the families and loved ones.
The families and loved ones of these people, and I'm like, why? People that are not even fending well for themselves. You know how the economy is, biting on every single person, and then you're still having to grapple with paying such huge amount of money, and in some cases you pay all of these things, you go rally around, people contribute, and your loved ones still die. I mean so at the end of the day, Nigerians are the sacrificial lamb for whatever political venture that these politicians embark on. This is sad. We pay the price. We don't get any reward. We don't get as little as good road. We don't even get all of that. We're not asking for too much, but we use our lives to pay for the political ventures of our politicians. I don't know how to comprehend it again because it's not adding up. I don't know. Sometimes you're like, how did I find myself in such a country? But the truth of the matter is, when you look deep again, you see that Nigeria is a great country after all, basically because of a few bad leaders here and there. But if we're able to get a hold of leadership in this country and get it right, automatically there will be a transformation. I'm very certain about that. There will be a transformation. The question now is, how do we make that happen?
All right, the how is when we always step on our pedals, but we need to find a way around that. There's no excuse. We've been here for far too long. Let's take a break, everyone. Coming up shortly is Ramsey Enoch Agbo with Heart to Heart Inspirational.
All right, it's good to have you join us on Inspirational today. This is Heart to Heart Inspirational with Ramsey Enoch Agbo. I want to talk about you were built for more. You, I mean you, yes, you were built for more. See, more is expected of you. You think you've arrived? You think you've given out so much? You were built for more. You were built for more. You think the millions you have is enough? Nah. You were built for more. You think you've impacted life enough? Nah. You were built for more. You think you have arrived? Oh, one of the killer symptoms is arrival mentality. Early arrival? No. You were built for more. Let me tell you this. There is a holy dissatisfaction that tells you there must be more than this. All right? That feeling is not ingratitude. Okay? It's not ingratitude, because some people feel, oh, you are not grateful. Oh, well, with all the things that you have. No, we thank God for where we are today, but we are not where we are meant to be. This is not our final bus stop. It is not pride. It is not pride. I belong to that school of thought. The arrival mentality. See, a lot of people, can I tell you a story? Well, I wouldn't have the time to tell you a story, but I just want to let you know that there are people you have met before, but maybe their appearance doesn't look like, they are that successful, but they are really successful. These are people who are hungry for more. We have billionaires, millionaires who are still in business today. Have you ever heard where somebody said, no, I'm not doing business again. This thing that has been giving me money, it's time to stop it. The money that I have is enough. No, you were designed for more. You were built for more. You are built. See, it's not ingratitude. I am not saying you shouldn't be grateful for every little step you make in life. Every level of your life, you need to appreciate God. For every level of your life, you need to appreciate God. The desire for more, the quest for more is not a sign of ingratitude, but it's a purpose calling. It's a purpose calling. Let me tell you something. When you have this arrival mentality, you die on time. You waste on time. Because I've seen a lot of people, who had this mentality, and at a point, by the time they crash, because let me tell you the truth. No matter where you are today, if you are not developing yourself, if you are not dreaming higher day by day, you will be stagnated. Stagnation is a killer. Stagnation is a humiliator. So, the quest for more is not a sign of ingratitude. You were not created to live beneath your capacity. Kala, I don't know if you understand that. You heard Kala. You were waiting for one to follow Kala, but then you won't hear that right now. But then I want you to know that you were not created to live beneath your capacity. You are not created to live beneath your capacity. So keep expanding your coast. Keep enlarging your coast. Keep enlarging your coast. Comfort can be the enemy of growth if it keeps you small. Because a lot of people, their attitude, by the time they begin to have small money, their attitude begin to change towards people they agree with, people that even helped them where they were growing up the ladder, they forget them. Arrogance and pride steps in, and they get stagnated at that point because they feel they have arrived. But I want to tell you that there is room for enlargement of capacity. You were built for more vision, more resilience, more capability than your current life requires. Expansion demands discomfort sometimes. All right? So what do you need to do in this situation? Inside you, there is so much that you need to give out. There is so much that you are built to achieve. I like people who said, well, I am retired, but I am not tired. I will refire. Have you heard that before? You are retired, but you are not tired. You are ready to refire. I have people like that around me. People who are retired, but they are refiring. A bend road is not an end road. So you shouldn't think because you got to a level, that's the end. No. You were not created to live, all right, beneath your capacity. He said, think it. If you can think it, if you can imagine it, it will enter your hand. You can become it. So I want you to know that the issue of, well, I'm okay, we rather have, I'm okay. No, that's not the best thing to do. You should be ready all the time to know that you are built for more. Trying to move from level to level, it's not a crime, it's not a sin. It's not a sign of ingratitude. Some people will say, oh, you are not grateful to God that you even have maybe a Toyota. You are saying, well, I need a Benz or I need a Lexus, and all of that. No, I know that human wants are insatiable. I'm not talking about people who are greedy here. Just get what I'm saying. I'm not talking about people who are greedy here. But then, the day you got, always thank God and appreciate God for that level you are right now. Because if you're not grateful, if that gratitude is not there, you cannot get to the next level. But then you need to know that there is room for expansion of capacity. How do you define a man who is successful? What is the definition? I have a definition for success. If you want to say this man has succeeded, what do you look out for? What are the elements? What are the ingredients? First of all, he should be a man that people are sucking from. If you are successful, then it means there are people who are benefiting from your success. That is when we say this man has succeeded. Meaning there are people who are sucking from his success, then he has succeeded. That's what it means. So at every level of your life, you should try as much as possible to do away with arrival mentality, because inside you there is more vision to explore, there is more resilience and more capability than your current situation, like I said earlier. But then you need to stretch beyond your comfort zone, demand for more from yourself. Stop settling for less than you are capable of. You cannot fulfill a big destiny with a small mindset. Want to fulfill a big destiny, then you have a small mindset. It's a no. Rise to your capacity. You were built for more. Now, live like it. All right? Behave like it. Act like it. All right. I believe someone has been inspired. This is what you need to run with this season, because I see you as a success going somewhere to happen. But then, be grateful for every level, or else you will not get to the next level. Have a beautiful day, and bye-bye for now.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m., Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Usoro.
On Global Television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust our multi-platform news broadcast real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG.
Global TV News, accurate and unbiased. I'm Uyi Agmofwebe.
We appreciate you for still being here with us. Now let's dive straight to the newspaper review segment, and we're starting with the Punch newspaper. First story, besides the plates, we have fresh turmoil in PDP as Wike camp rolls out primaries plan. I think I saw this yesterday. You find that detail.
Good sign.
But I'm wondering, why are we having primaries? Maybe not to target the presidential race, but other
exactly. Other offices, governorship, National Assembly, and all of that, right?
Okay, so let's see how that turns out. It's quite dramatic in the PDP, but I mean, we wish them the best. The Star story. APC imposes 2-week deadline for presidential governor Nas Forbes. why is APC imposing 2-week deadline?
We need to speed things up to also ensure they do not leave any loose ends regarding INEC's guidelines.
Yeah, so by the way, INEC has political parties that are still aspiring to jump on other parties due to some blockades here and there. Have just 8 days to do
so, yes.
After 8 days, they will be...
Stay where you are.
You have no choice than to stay where you are. So right to that story says, but I'm wondering why there's a deadline for the presidential form. Are we supposed to have the presidential form in the APC when we know that, it's...
No, for whatever it's worth, as they say in the voice of American rapper Jay-Z, I do this for my culture. So let's do it for the culture.
Okay. So right to that, APC releases timetable, fixes presidential. It looks like APC and PDP are working hand in hand. They are catching up with what is required of them.
There's just like how in business, Priscilla, there's also competition in politics. I mean, very stern competition.
Interesting. Okay. Right. So APC releases timetable, fixes presidential primary for May 16, governors primary for May 23rd. Okay, so if you're aspiring to be a president in the APC, this is your chance. Maybe governors from other or presidential aspirants from other parties can jump on this because they can also defect that.
Of course, why not?
I mean, you can shoot your shot.
It's a horse trading.
Ruling party sells presidential form 100 million naira.
They didn't do an upward review of it from last 4 years.
Governor aspirants to pay 50 million naira. Senate 20 million naira. Reps 10 million naira. State Assembly 6 million naira. Is there still hope? Do you still plan to get the form?
No. I changed my mind. Besides, I'm not even registered with any political party. But I'm wondering, are the funds still free for women? I thought that was
I was expecting to see that
to encourage gender inclusion. I mean, inclusive democracy, right?
Well, inclusive in papers, right? Literally, but we've not seen that in the papers.
Maybe wait to hear from women who would make an attempt.
We hope so.
Let's hear their testimonies.
We need to, and I really need to. Maybe we'll have more of that detail on page 2. I'm quite interested in this story. I want to find out, maybe for investigation purposes,
exactly.
to see
Let's have the record.
What comes out of this, especially for the women. Okay, there's one other writer that says female youths, physically challenged persons get 50% rebates on nomination form. That's a 50% discount.
Yeah, it is.
It's outrageous. If you ask me, I was expecting to see
something
free. I mean, where am I supposed to get 25 million?
So why we're saying women should probably consider starting their own party?
I think I need to be at the forefront of that movement. Okay, next story. Over 4,600 Nigerian doctors relocate to UK in 3 years. That's coming from a report. The question is, how many numbers, what are the numbers of doctors we get every year from various universities or when they eventually finish medical school, and then we'll compare to the statistics. But it's not a good one for us, if you ask me. And that detail is right there on page 14. Obi Kwankwaso launched joint movement before ADC primaries. This politics is interesting. So I kind of feel that even within the APC, we still have people that are there because of Atiku.
Yes.
No politicians are actually there because of Atiku.
Maybe
at the grassroots level, we have the numbers for Obi, but for the politician, for the political class, a good number of them are there for Atiku. So I wonder how it plays out.
They are there for the love of Atiku.
For the love, no, they want Atiku. Or should I say he mobilizes them? I don't know.
But maybe they are members of his base. So wherever he goes, they move.
Is that really the case? Because I know the guest at KBS today said, Atiku is such a good, but when he gives you, he doesn't allow the other hand to know. And
that's scriptural.
That's scriptural. Well, page 7 is where you see that detail. And finally, we have Daniel shut out as Ogun APC endorses Abiodun for Senate. That detail is on page 7. And those are your headlines. Quite an interesting read If you ask me, get yourself a
On
copy
the
of
Punch, right?
Yeah, so let's go to the Nigerian news director so he takes us through that.
All right, the big one first here. It reads, Wike-backed PDP faction urges defectors to return, says era of uncertainty is over. That's the national leader of the party there, reassuring those who left because they were aggrieved. I mean, nobody grieves forever, really. All right. On the right side of the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, we have 3 headlines. Court affirms FCCP's authority to investigate Airpeace over consumer complaints. Of course, the regulator must be able to do that. And we're also talking about, consumer rights as well as antitrust issues all combined. NCC, CBN, Inc. MOU on fraud protection. Ogun East's APC leaders endorse Abiodun for Senate, so it means that window is shut now. CBN reforms saved Nigerians from severe hardship. That's attributed to the governor of the Apex Bank, Olayemi Kadoso. President Tinubu approves police academy campus in Ogun with 15 billion naira take-off grants. Yeah, so if we have one in Lagos, who says we can have in the neighboring state, which is Ogun. Those are your headlines from the Nigerian News Direct. But beyond the proliferation of police academies or police training schools, the quality of the people who come out from these schools will be far more important. I'm not sure people are as interested, they are as interested in whether Priscilla came out of Police Academy in Kano, in Enugu, for example, if they had one there, Lagos or Ogun, as they are concerned about how she conducts her business as a policeman or police officer, all right, going forward. So we need to always put that in mind. Again, in an era where the emphasis is essentially on international best practices, we can afford to relegate quality to the background. All right, Daily Trust is our next port of call, and Priscilla has got those headlines for us.
Daily Trust, I think we take it first with the Nigerian Tribune.
Oh, Nigerian Tribune comes first.
Nigerian Tribune comes first. Okay, so first story, top left corner above the nameplate, Daniel shut out as Ogun East APC endorses Abiodun for Senate. Rather to that says, we didn't prevent him from entering, and that's coming from Abiodun's aide. You find that detail on page 14. The next story, just by the side, is on Kwara. It says 4 soldiers, vigilante, feared, killed in terrorist attack. 2 writers did that. 42 illegal miners arrested over abduction of traditional rulers. 5 killed in fresh attack in Benue. That's a sad one, and the details is right there on page 3. To the Star story, how ADC presidential candidates may emerge. United Opposition Movement to Midwife Consensus Option. That's coming from a source. To find out that source on page 16.
So by which source are we going to determine this source?
Maybe X source or something.
It's a good place to start from.
A good place to start from. Next story has the PDP crisis as its kicker. Wike calls for committee on reconciliation. This sounds like some marketing team.
Right.
Come on.
And it sounds aggressive a bit.
Calls for committee on reconciliation. Well, I don't know. I think he's just trying to make peace. I mean, everybody has their good side at the end of the day.
And there's no better time to bring that side on than at this very crucial point.
Very important.
My mom calls it critical juncture.
You know, when somebody wants to start a business, you can find it very. I know no one likes to be very rude, like very aggressive. But at one point, you're not now going to business, and then you just see some kind of nice gesture. She's all polite. I'm like, I'm wondering, and then you start to see on her status advert. Come on, buy.
Yes, you prepare the ground.
You know that. You want to find out details on page 16. CBN wants banks to unlock $1 billion monthly diaspora inflow by year end. Of course, it's possible. with the right environment. Details on page. You talk about helping them to fix things like electricity,
Right.
and all the basic amenities. You cannot expect these things are supposed to be normal actually with the right environment again.
Take it for granted, even.
Page 6 is where you see that detail. Forensic report reveals Amopitan has no X account. INEC says so. INEC probed INEC and now came up with finding, and it says without any evidence, without any explanation, they just give the final verdict. He doesn't have
Exactly.
an X account.
You think that should be challenged in courts?
Of course, we need to have our cybersecurity experts come on board to
Take a look at it.
take a look at this. Let's see, because we are not dummies in this country.
Let's double check, right?
Like you say, world practices. If you're coming out to debunk such, you have to do it with clear facts and figures. Scientific backed facts, right? So the cyberspace is a space that can be understood. There is a science around it. And you want to do such a finding, let us know, because we have intellectuals in the country that would also understand and help you break it down. So don't break it down for us. Bring it to us.
Give it to us the way it is.
We'll have ChatGPT to help us do all of that. We'll give it to AIs to help us understand. It's the foreigners that don't understand. You can't give us around the final results and expect that it's
But again,
accepted.
does it not remind us all that public office is not for the weak-minded?
I can imagine the mental and emotional stress that this has put at people, because Nigerians can investigate.
Right.
FBI is in this country.
Once they're interested, there's no stopping them.
And I wonder where they got all of that from. You just see them digging tweets from ages, and you're saying, how did people go? Anyways, that's how intelligent we are. So you have to tread carefully, especially in the time like this. Make sure you leave your digital footprints. Make sure your digital footprints are clean.
Right.
Do not leave anything.
Or you do not leave at all.
Don't leave at all. So, that's on health. We have air pollution raises cancer risk by 11%. Global report warns. Details on page 1. APC presidential candidates to emerge May 16. I don't know why I find this laughable. NWC fixes governor primary for May 23. Okay, so we have rich Nigerians that can actually afford that 100.
Yeah, of course, from their breast pockets.
Details on page 2. Finally, Tinubu approves 15 billion naira takeoff grant for new police academy campus in Ogun. Details on page 4. And those are your headlines for the Nigerian Tribune. Next point of call is the Daily Times.
All right, thank you, Priscilla. Above the nameplates, we have 2 headlines there. Top right says, subnational debt rises to 4.36 trillion naira. Lagos tops with 1.04 trillion naira as expected, right? Lagos residents protest 18-month electricity outrage. That's a year and a half, quite a long time to not have power really in 2026. All right. The Star headline reads, with a kicker, insecurity, bandits raise ransom bar, demand 1 billion naira on Ariko Easter abducted worshippers in Kaduna. So bandits can now raise the bar on ransom demand. Quite a shameful situation we're dealing with. Forensic investigation absolves Amupiton from X accounts, INEC, and the man looks all robust in such flamboyant at this point in time. All right, the rest is history, I suppose. Plateau women destroy military checkpoints in protests after deadly attacks. Those kinds of headlines are all we have for you from the Daily Times this morning. Well, our last port of call, incidentally, will be the Daily Sun newspaper.
Okay, the Daily Sun newspaper has its first story besides the nameplate, and it says, Dangote, I beg your pardon, how did I see that? Boko Haram, there's federal government, over 416 victims in Borno.
That's on the Daily Sun newspaper.
That's on the Daily Sun newspaper.
Right.
Kaduna Easter Day attack. Kidnappers demand 1 billion naira ransom. Details on page 4 and 5. Next story states that...
Again, just so we're clear, that's on the Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Daily Sun newspaper. Yeah. States debts hits 4.36 trillion naira. 10 lead with 2.96 trillion naira on the Daily Sun newspaper. Bloodbath in Plateau, Benue, Kwara State. Page 456 has that story. Soldiers, others killed, injured in fresh attacks. Women protest in Riom community. CDS visits troop. Pledges renewed efforts against banditry in Zamfara. Gunmen kill driver, abducts passenger in Ore, Benin Expressway. You are an umpire, not hired hitman. ADC youths tell Amopita. Party denies talks with PRP. Affirms commitment to legal battle. This is supposed to clear the air because we've been hearing talks around ADC having its second option or plan B of going to the PRP. But I mean, at this point, if after 8 days or if after 7 days we don't hear any court judgment on this matter, that would be a very big risk that ADC would be embarking on, I guess, against 20.
It's a risky place for the party.
Very risky place. I know a lot of people that wanted to join officially, but somehow the whole court situation has kept them, laid back and still it has kept them still. Some of them have just resorted to, okay, let's stay in our current party. Even if I don't support them, I can work with these other people and push them out. I don't know if that's the best.
There's no better time for politicians in the opposition to have their thinking caps on.
So when your state is not paying you well, you can work for another party. And when your party is not paying you, you can work for another party in your party.
So again, it comes down to one thing, highest bidder. Exactly,
highest bidder. And the good thing is you are still loyal.
Right.
At the end of the day, you are loyal to the eyes of Nigerians because as long as you're not moving from party to party, you're a loyalist.
You're on one spot.
You're one spot.
But you can have multiple streams of income.
I mean, you can be a rainbow guy, as they call it.
But I thought that was only in Port Harcourt. Are we now making it countrywide?
It has become a national issue. I mean, it is
beneficial. And that's the brainchild of Years of Wike, isn't it? Minister of the FCT.
We should credit that to him. Quite an initiative.
2027 is already getting interesting.
Brilliant initiative. Refinancing risk rise as Nigeria's debt nears 180 trillion naira. Again, I think I would want to highlight Nigerian debt in today's conversation, because the borrowings and borrowings and borrowings
becoming very disturbing.
The page 24 is where you see that. Enugu women demand senatorial slots. Page 29 is where you see that. Of course, is this not supposed to be a norm? How are we having women demand for what is already theirs? I mean, what should be theirs? Page 29 is where you find the details. Finally, INEC chairman unveils report of forensic investigation on partisan X post. But if you ask me, is it a crime to in your former or 2 years ago have a party? I think constantly denying this thing is not making sense. As at 2023, you are not the INEC chairman. It's not to say I supported this guy, but right now I'm neutral. Why do you keep denying that you were a Nigerian? It's not okay to.
Actually, in this same country, in the previous government, somebody had been accused of being a sympathizer of Al Qaeda, and there was an audio tape of him that authenticated that claim at that point in time. The person didn't deny, and he came out and said, yes, I didn't know any better at that time. Of course, Nigerians railed against even that position, and then he apologized. And he continued to stay on as minister until that government ended for almost 8 years. So I think there are better ways to get around this.
Exactly.
There are always better ways.
Those are the headlines for the Daily Sun. Incidentally, our last paper for today.
Well, yes, incidentally, that's what we'll call it. A wrap here, looking at the papers for you, and we do hope you read up details because you owe that to yourself, right? But remember too that all of these headlines are just as published by their respective publishers. Global Television, as a broadcast media outfit, or the team here on Global Morning does not in any way contribute to them. We'll take a break, and shortly, Ogochukwu Mobudo will be here with Social Bars. Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m., Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
Glad you could join us. There's dust in the forecast. So going to Tuesday, dust lifted from our source region is expected to create a hazy, dry conditions across parts of the northeast, particularly Yobe, Borno, Adamawa, and Gombe State. Elsewhere across the country, weather conditions will remain relatively stable. The southern areas will see mostly cloudy skies, while other regions can expect mostly sunny conditions with few patches of cloud. There is a chance of afternoon rainfall, especially along the coastal region, where thunderstorms are likely. The storms may extend into inland areas, affecting much of the southwest and reaching parts of Anambra, Enugu, Imo, Abia, and also parts of Kogi State. And that's the latest weather update for Tuesday. Do join us again. I am Akemi Samarda.
Witchtech Cables, we don't just make cables, we deliver excellence. Our products are built with advanced technology, trusted for their unmatched quality and durability. With a wide range of cables, swift delivery, and continuous innovation, we stay ahead of the market demand. We are proudly Nigerian, fully indigenous, yet world-class. Backed by a professional team, strong technical support, and a deep commitment to customer satisfaction. Witchtech Cables is more than a brand, it's a promise. Witchtech Cables, quality cables better than the best.
When social media speaks, we listen and we bring you the extra. It's your one-stop shop for trends, tweets, and the tea everyone's sipping on. Join the conversation, share your thoughts, and get that extra dose of what's shaking the internet.
And on issues making wave on social media to your doorstep.
Social Boss Extra, where the trend meets the talk, only on Global TV.
Good morning, Nigerians and viewers around the world. It's time to look at buzzing issues making waves on social media. The Joint Admission and Matriculation Board has announced the arrest of 2 candidates and a parent for allegedly falsifying 2026 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination (UTME) results using artificial intelligence and other electronic tools. The board disclosed this on Friday, April 17th, while releasing the result of the 632,788 candidates who sat for the examination on Thursday, April 16. JAMB spokesperson Fabian Benjamin said the suspects were apprehended for manipulating official SMS result notification to fabricate or alter scores with the intention of deceiving parents, guardians, and members of the public. Currently, 2 candidates and 1 parent are in custody for engaging in result falsification using AI and other electronic means. The statement said Benjamin described the act as a serious criminal offense and warned that the board would ensure all those involved face the full weight of the law. He also cautioned candidates against tampering with result messages sent through JAMB's official SMS platform 55019 and 66019. The board advised candidates who sat for the examination on Thursday to check their scores by sending UTME results via SMS to 55019 or 66019 using the phone number linked to their registration. Okay, let's take some comments from social media as regards this topic. And the first comment here is coming from Richie Phillips. And Phillips says, this exam used to be pride of Nigeria. I agree with you. It used to actually be the pride of Nigeria. The next comment is coming from Vinari20, and Vinari says, but your computers are not working in the centers centers malfunction up and down. All right, that shouldn't be an excuse to manipulate a result. The last but not the least is coming from Drone Captain AZ, and this person says, I don't agree that Nigeria is currently structured. It's a great country. It was politically constructed in a way that still creates deep tensions today. What I see is a land rich in natural and human resources, with strong cultures like Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo, but held together by a system that isn't working. I believe the union should be re-examined through a genuine referendum, allowing each region to decide its future, whether to remain together or pursue greater autonomy. Only then can we build truly functional and prosperous nation. Okay, I think this person is just talking about Nigeria as a whole. Perhaps he's saying that this is what led to this. There shouldn't be an excuse for a crime. Well, I'm not alone in the studio. I'm being joined with Uyi Agumofele. Good morning, Uyi.
Good morning, Ogo Chukwu. I don't know if you're aware, I'm a young student of AI, but for the first time I'm hearing that it could be used to alter results. Yes.
Okay, let me ask a quick one. What year did you write JAMB?
Well, that was many years ago.
Like 18, 20, 25?
Let's say, no, some 16, 17 years ago, yes.
Oh, but that's perfect. So then we just know paper and pencil, right?
The idea of AI had not even entered the mind of any human being on earth.
Okay, so right now we see computer-based tests, and I must tell you that since we started computer-based, anyways, I think my set was the last set that actually wrote the paper and pencil before the computer.
Before the data transition.
Yes. So and it was smooth. It was. I don't know if I should say free and fair, but it was actually a smooth one.
But was it credible?
It was credible because we didn't have, it is what you wrote, the mark for you, you see your results. In fact, few hours after you have written the exam, so you have to see it maybe that evening. So you're already anticipating because your results will come out. But this time we get to see results take longer than it should take. And it's supposed to be faster because it is computer based. And most of the centers, most times, will always have issues. People always complain about the centers, either the computers are not working, or we get to see that it is slow, or something, malfunction of computer every time. And at the end of the day, they still release results regardless of these malfunctions. So when I see people say, oh, they manipulate results, they do this, I'm not saying it's a lie. JAMB can actually manipulate results, because how can you bring out a result of someone whose computer was malfunctioned during the exam? Now this is what we are facing. Parents now take authority into their hands by producing results for their children. This person is in custody. What do you say about this?
All right, quite interesting. Everywhere across the world, people make attempts to circumvent systems and processes. And most times it's not even about exams or tests. It can even be in things as different as job interviews, maybe interviews that have to do with institutional recruitments, armed forces, the police, the civil service or public service as we call it. Sometimes even things that have to do with visa processing, hotel booking, ticketing, and what have you. People try to, we have seen people with, register for conferences, pay or post to have paid for hotel reservation using fake payments means, credit card, debit cards, whatever. We've seen all of that happen. But as it has to do with this instant case of JAMB and falsification of results or scores, it's a bit disturbing. Because when this issue came up yesterday, this news broke on Sunday. So by yesterday morning, Priscilla and I talked about it briefly. And one thing she said is that she's not surprised that people have been doing this for a while, even worse. This is not to justify it, it's to say that we should be very concerned now. And then I asked a question around, when the school double check your score, if I come and say, I bring a result that says, or that indicates I scored, let's say 295 in JAM, all right, whereas what I scored was actually 171. Will that school I'm applying to, of course, I have to write the post-UTME test. Will the school not double check with JAM? Does JAM not have a central database where you can check? The same way you use your scratch card to check WAEC results or NECO results and things like that. As you said, you'll be surprised that there are schools that don't even go that extra length. What they do is to look at the as well original printout of your JAM result, which is the one with the green JAM logo and what have you, and they just do the processing because the idea is about speed.
All right, so sorry to cut you short. You're going to continue with what you're saying right now. So I think the double checking is the post UTME, the other one you get to write, because I don't think like you said, they did not create any means where they can actually double check. Maybe if your result
like a database
is actually,
or something.
If your result is actually the real result, if it belongs to you and not forged. So I think this post UTME is a way to double check to know if what you actually wrote in JAM, if you are the person who actually wrote that exam. Because if you can pass JAM, you can pass post UTME exams.
Exactly. So there is that one. Then the question you're also asking yourself is, what was the motive of these people? Because motive matters in any crime or allegation of crime. All right, and that's why sometimes people are let off by courts. They're let off the hook because of motive. Again, that depends on the severity of the crime in particular. But I'm asking, was the goal primarily by these individuals to gain admission into a tertiary institution in Nigeria, or was it just to, as it were, outsmart somebody? For example, is it not possible that this candidate wanted to impress their parents or beat money out of their parents or their guardians? Could that not have been the case? For instance, somebody has told you, or maybe your parents have told you, if you pass JAM, I'll do X, Y, Z, maybe take you on vacation or whatever it is, some sort of incentive. And by way of trying to ensure you met that standard or requirement, you have to go this extra mile. Because if the idea is that you want to use this result, these falsified, these doctored scores, to get admission into a university, I think you were, ideally, in a sane environment, up against a brick wall.
That's because a lot of persons have done it and
they got away with it.
Yes, they got away with it.
That's scary.
You understand? It's really scary because you can imagine how many persons must have done something like this. This is not the first person.
So there must be precedent.
They will tell you that the person who they caught is the thief, but the ones they didn't catch, what happens to them?
He's a smart guy.
He's a smart person. That's the way it is. So it's really scary that present day we still talk about JAM and all of this. But I still think that we are not ready in this country when it comes to the
scrutiny of results,
examination. I don't think we're ready for that because we can't keep hearing, since it's a section, the computer-based thing for examination, we can't keep hearing one thing. Oh, the centers, there are no computers in the centers. This and this happened to the centers. I couldn't log in. We've had network issue. We've had network issues in during examination. We've had also that some computers went off in the middle of the examination, leaving students stranded. And at the end of the day, JAM still released results for those students.
So how did they generate those?
So how did you generate that result? You did not even think about the parents, because you are paying money to buy a phone. You are going through the stress of reading to make sure that you pass. And then now it is not your fault. You paid for JAM. You read, but your computer went off, and then JAM releases results. Some parents are already tired of buying JAM form, child going to... Some parents will tell you, I know my daughter scored a high score. I think we saw something like that last year. A woman came up to social media and she was saying, my daughter did well in JAM. There is nothing JAM can tell me because I know my daughter. I saw her score in WAEC. I saw her score in all the examinations she wrote. So she did well in JAM. So why am I having a low score? So you can imagine. But anyway, you cannot justify seeing anything that is bad. It's bad. It's wrong. So you can't actually go and get a result, forge a result for your child. It's not possible. It's not a good one. You should have just let it slide, or maybe bring up a complaint, send to JAM, but are they going to also reply?
Yeah, maybe last resort, go to court.
To enforce your rights. But can we really do that? Is it possible?
I think, no, again, like I said, if the situation demands that, why not? Who says JAMB cannot be sued? The same way JAMB has the powers to, as it were, push for prosecution of those who have committed infractions regarding the rules or the regulations guiding JAMB and the exams that it conducts, all right? That same way, if I feel aggrieved enough and I've used or explored all the windows or opportunities available to me, and I'm not able to, I still feel aggrieved, I can go to court. We've seen people sue the police.
A lot of persons don't
We've seen people sue universities.
System anymore.
Right. There's the issue of exactly. There's that mistrust, public. Erosion of public trust for the most part. There's also the concern about how that these cases can be long drawn out. So most Nigerians do not have that patience. But in all of this, I think it's a basis for JAMB to be reminded that there's much more work to do. And let's be fair to JAMB, we have seen steady improvements in this process, but we're saying it is still very far away from where it ought to be by this time.
Thank you so much, Uwe, for your contribution to this topic. And of course, I'm sure JAMB has heard, and of course, parents and students that that take this exam, you must have heard that you do not have to forge results for your children. Go to court if need be. All right, that's the size of our conversation today on Social Buzz on Global Morning. I am Ogochukwu Mobuno, and thank you for joining us. I'll be leaving you in the hands of Uyi and Priscilla as they bring us into the discussion section of Global Morning. Good morning once again, Nigeria and viewers around the world. Bye for now.
When social media speaks, we listen and we bring you the extra. It's your one-stop shop for trends, tweets, and the tea everyone's sipping on. Join the conversation, share your thoughts, and get that extra dose of what's shaking the internet.
And on issues making wave on social media to your doorstep.
Social Buzz Extra, where the trend meets the talk, only on Global TV.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debate, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m., Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Usoro.
On Global Television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust a multi-platform news broadcast real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG.
Global TV News, accurate and unbiased. I'm Uyi Agmofwebe. Well, let's turn to our conversations this morning. Turns out we'll have two of them lined up already. For several months, there were several debates around, the proposed tax, not laws at the time, but legislative propositions as they then were. But fast forward to not too long ago, both chambers of the National Assembly did harmonize, and as it stands today, the president has signed that into law. We saw the politics that accompanied that process and how that at a point all 19 state governors of the northern part of the country had stated their positions and concerns regarding those propositions. But today it will appear all stakeholders are on the same page. However, there are still misgivings as to what real practical implementation will be, implications for individuals, businesses and large corporations. That's on the issue of tax. And second, the debt stock of Nigeria, and of course the challenge and concern around borrowing. We had heard in this country, we're at a point, the former Minister of Finance had said for the foreseeable future, Nigeria will have to borrow. But then there's the need for context and perspective, especially as it has to do with fiscal responsibility and the need to borrow and tie borrowings to real-time measurable development. To help us find some sense in this, we're joined this morning by Johnson Olugbero, is a tax expert as well as lead partner at Blue Line Associates. Johnson, it's a delight to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Great. Yes. Well, you look reformed, by the way. But I'd like us to
explain what that means.
You help us find out. But quite frankly, it's interesting when you talk about tax and taxation. It appears to be a subject very complicated, and these recent hula baloo, as I like to call it, around these new tax laws have not even made it any easier. Help us understand what exactly the issues are regarding tax and taxation in Nigeria today.
That will probably need a school to unpack all of that.
Right.
But I think basically what has happened in the past few months, particularly with respect to the reform that got enforced 1st of January of this year, there's been quite a lot of effort to, sort of depart from some of our archaic laws and old practices that were not even helping us in terms of ease of doing business. All right. Nobody wants to pay taxes, not even the richest business people. But then it's bad enough that businesses have to cough out money to pay taxes. But then we're also looking at the ease of paying the taxes. How that if you have business maybe in all the states of the country, you will have to go and register with each of the state boards and then have a file with them. And the questions have always been, why can't we just have a unique, universal tax ID that everybody can use? So if I'm in Abuja and I have to go and do business in Port Harcourt, I have to go and register with Port Harcourt Inland Revenue Service. If I go to Lagos, so imagine banks and multinational that have presence everywhere. The cost of compliance alone, what it takes them to file pay returns for each of their employees and stuff like that, and the list is endless. We had issues of multiplicity of taxation, where you are paying the same taxes, several times, and there is no sort of way of, harmonization is such a big word in Nigeria now, because I don't want to be asked to define it. Anyway, that's on the lighter note. So we have all those sort of issues as well. We also have the issue with are we getting the people who are earning more to pay a fair share? It appeared that the people who were earning less were the ones who were eventually paying more. And I can cite an instance where I remember the Minister of Aviation at a point when they imposed this parking fee
at the airport.
At the airport, it's always been there, but they just discovered that the people who really can afford to pay, they don't pay. And it turns out that it's the average Nigerians who are just trying to survive, that they stop their gun on their chest and say you have to pay. They are the one that get punished. So these are many of the reasons why the reform was birthed. And it's been an ongoing effort even before this administration. We had it as far back as maybe since COVID, when we even prior to then we had what we call VATES.
Yes, there was.
Yeah, there was the VATES. Then that's the voluntary income and asset distribution scheme.
Under former President Muhammadu Buhari. Yeah, then the Vice President was driving that initiative.
At the time. Then we move from there to the era of Finance Act. And the whole idea of Finance Act at the time was that because laws take very long time, and it's a very lengthy process, and if you don't really have the political will and all of that, it's a very, look at our constitution, we've been trying to amend it forever. So I think in the wisdom of the previous administration, they wanted like some quick wins. So they came up with Finance Act. And you saw that even the Finance Act was now even every other year we had Finance Act. So Finance Act 2020, then we had Finance Act 2021. You will see provisions of Finance Act 2020 being amended by the Finance Act 2021. So it's almost like you have a very terrible road, and then we're like, okay, the cost of having a complete rehabilitation is expensive. But let's just patch it here and there. That was what Finance Act attempted to do, and it did patch, quite a number of issues, but the issues were still there. So I think in the wisdom of this current administration, they decided, okay, you know what, let's do away with these laws. They are old. In fact, many of the penalties, if I know that the cost of non-compliance is just 5,000 naira per month, and at the end of the year it comes to 60,000 naira.
Why not?
Why do I have to comply? In fact, that was the practice. People will abandon their tax responsibility and just pay the 60,000 naira happily, knowing fully well that they have used that money several times over to do business and stuff like that. So we then came up with, like you said in the introduction, it's a long journey, but eventually June 26th. It was signed to law
last year,
and the law is before us. Not perfect, I can tell you that, not perfect, but I think it's a far departure, and we are much closer to El Dorado, to the promised land with the law. What we will expect is that we shouldn't wait for that long again. Maybe in another 2-3 years, let's come back again to the table and then review which aspect of this position is working, which one is counterproductive. I think the mistake we made with the last one was we left it for so long, before we amended it. So let's look for a way to, and our taxes should be responsive to whatever is going on in the economy. The way things are changing in the economy now, things are changing so fast. Look at the war that is going on in the Middle East. That has changed the game for business, particularly people within the oil and gas sector. So our laws should be responsive like that. And I think the committee did a good job, but plenty room for improvement.
I'm sure President wants to.
Nigeria has actually been on a path of tax reform, and the clear aim is to move away from total dependence on oil,
right,
and then to be able to generate revenue and all. But the most concerning part for Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians especially, is how we can move away from the tax reform on paper to truly seeing progress, to truly seeing that revenue generated from whatever we get to pay, and of course, these monies are being put into systems, infrastructure that works. Is it a reality, or, is it far-fetched?
Maybe somewhere in between. Somewhere in between. And every time we've had a conference or a tax seminar, I can't remember the last time, or even on any show, either on radio or TV, that this question doesn't pop up. And the question is, why should I pay when I can't see the impact? I don't have light, I have to drive on bad roads and all of that. And there are different kind of narratives depending on what favors you. So if you ask government, they will come with the narrative that, well, as a matter of fact, Nigeria actually has one of the lowest rates in the region and probably even globally. They will tell you, in this place is this percentage, was here is this percentage. They will tell you in places like UK, sometimes you could pay up to 50% or even more of your earning on all kind of municipal taxes and all sort of things. But again, what is the quality of life
in those places?
In those places. So I will be happy to pay even 70% of my tax, of my earning rather, in taxes. I will pay it happily if I don't have to worry about school. Do you know what? Children are resuming this week and next week. Parents know what that means. If my children can go to free school, they get a free meal at maybe once a day. The roads are good, which means I have to visit the mechanic less frequently. I don't have to dig a borehole because the water system works. I don't have to drive to the office because I can just jump on the train.
There is health coverage.
There's health coverage. That's a big deal. Health is a big deal. So at the end of the day, what do we really spend our money on after all? That's what we spend our money on. So that's almost you. So if we convert how much the average household still spend on health, on transportation, and things like that, and we convert that to tax, you will see that we're probably paying maybe 75% of our earning, because what do we really have left, to buy clothes or change our shoes and all of that? So that's why the narrative, I don't always agree with that narrative that we are paying less, but you have to also give the committee their flowers in their consideration of these reforms. At least going by what I've heard Mr. Wedele say over and over and over, those were actually the areas that they paid attention to: health, transportation, feeding, and for the most part, they've kind of reduced, or in many instances even eliminated, the taxes on those aspects like transportation, health, basic food items, and all of that. I don't know if it was on this show I was trying to explain. For instance, on basic food items now, they used to be on what we call the exempt list.
Right. And
now they are zero rated. So somebody says, okay, what's the difference? What difference does that make? To the consumer, it makes no difference, because if it's zero rated or VAT exempt, it makes no difference. It means that at the end of the day, you are not paying VAT on that item. But the difference is from the perspective of the manufacturer or the producer. So if an item is zero rated, or let me say if an item is VAT exempt, what it means is that first, I can't charge VAT on the output. So if I'm selling a device and that device is VAT exempt, what that means is that I cannot put an output VAT. I can't charge VAT on my customers. However, I might have incurred VAT in the course of producing that gadget. And because the item is VAT exempt, I cannot also claim my input VAT, the VAT that I might have suffered. Maybe some of the raw material that I used to produce the item.
From different sources.
From different sources. I've paid VAT on it. So what they've done now is that those things are now zero rated. Zero rated means that even though, so the item is VATed at 0%. The advantage is that I can claim all of my input VAT, even though I'm not charging output VAT. So whatever input VAT I have suffered, I can legitimately now claim them.
So how do you do that? You advance those claims to the tax authorities?
When you're about, is that the point where you're about to pay your tax and then you're exempted of those charges?
As a matter of fact, right from the point of transaction, if this system works the way it is designed to work.
With a big if, I guess.
Yeah, a big if is such that while I am even purchasing those materials, the person from whom I bought those materials, I've already asked for my tax ID, and the person has already logged it in while he's filing his own VAT return for that month. Now, okay, I charge Mr. Olubero VAT of this amount. So automatically, once I get to my dashboard, that already works. It's not, it already worked even as we speak. It's just that many people are, but now my faith now depends on you putting it in the system. So if you don't put it in the system, I can't claim it.
I am at a loss.
I am at a loss. So that's why there have been this big shout about make sure that whoever you are transacting with by himself or herself is tax compliant. Make sure they have a tax ID so that if they were supposed to have filed that input VAT on your behalf and they didn't file it, you can hold them accountable, and there is a very huge penalty when you don't do that. So these are some of the things that they are trying to do, but I think we'll still need a number of years to really
build the system.
To build the system, because a lot of people are still even trying to get a sense of what is going on. So the provisions are there, but on paper, like you said, it will take us some time. That's why I said maybe we are somewhere in between. We're not yet there.
So how far have we gone? I know this whole thing was implemented, kicked off as January 1st. This is April now. Would we say that, Nigerians or have been loyal to paying their tax, business owners and all of that? Have we been able to make returns? Have we were to give a review? What's the progress so far?
So as a tax practitioner, I will speak from my own domain. Maybe the tax authority have a different, they may have a different view. I can say clearly that for those in employment, there have been, those one felt the impact almost immediately.
Wow.
Because
it's automatic.
They have to file payee every 10th of the following month.
That's the employers.
The employers. So, and this is April, which means they file for January, they file for February, they file for March, as we speak. So, we've had only 3 months, and maybe that's enough time to review. I know that as far as individuals are concerned, most of them should be paying less now. If you are earning somewhere anything below 20 million per annum, except your HR is not doing the computations right, you will most likely be paying slightly less. Worst case scenario, you are not expected to pay more than what you were paying in the previous regime. Because for most people earning 100,000 per month, which comes to about 1.2 thereabout per year, most likely they will. We've crunched the number over and over again. By the time you take care of the rent relief and all of that, they might end up, paying less.
Paying less.
Yes.
Okay, for those salary earners.
For those salary earners.
Okay, so what's the cap? Because I know that there are people that are exempted totally from this.
I hear 800,000 or something in that neighborhood.
So yes, you will hear 800,000. You will hear different numbers. You will hear 800,000. You will hear 1.2 million. You will hear 100,000.
I'm not afraid 1.2 million.
Yes.
And I hear you saying 1.2.
Yes, 1.2 million. So it's all the same. It just depends on whether you are doing it per month. The 800,000 is not even the minimum. It's more than that. But why we don't have a fixed number, why most people just prefer to go with the 800,000 is because here's how it works. If you are earning an X amount, there are deductions that are allowable, that are tax deductible, as we like to call them. Things like your pension, as we had them in the old practice.
Right.
Your pension, any money that is being deducted from your salary for the purpose of pension is tax deductible. If your organization commit to the NHF fund, that's the National Housing Fund, any amount you contribute to such scheme is also tax deductible. If you also some insurance too, particularly the NHIS, any money that is being deducted, now it's a different ball game if it is your employer that is paying. It doesn't affect you, but if it is such that you also contribute something, any amount you contribute from your own salary
is tax deductible.
And then we also have what we call the rent allowance, which is 500,000 maximum, but usually it is 20% of your annual rent. That's how it works.
Even if your rent is more than
Even if you live in Banana Island.
If it's more than 500,000, it's the cap is 500,000.
Yes. So what government is saying is that the government does not expect your rent to be more than 2.5 million. Because that is only when 20% will be 500,000.
Right.
Okay.
So anywhere you are living,
you must not live in a house that is more than that.
Yes, that's the expectation.
So
rented.
if you are paying more than 2.5, go and buy your house.
Just buy your house. But then if you buy your own house, you don't even enjoy that anymore. You don't.
Okay.
You don't enjoy that, except if the house is funded by loan. Then the interest on that on the mortgage is also tax deductible. So it might be a good time to consider mortgage or some other sort of financing, property financing options, just to ensure that at the end of the day, at least interest. I mean, somebody was telling me, real life story, that in his organization that is going to be taking loan from his organization, and then he will pay so that the interest on the loan. I was like, Nigeria, just like before I came on board, I heard you say Nigeria will always look for a way. When you're talking about JAM, I was laughing because they will always look for a way, around it. Somebody says, okay, it's my property, but not a problem. I will get a facility manager to manage it, and we will agree on the rent.
I'll rent it out for myself.
I'll rent it to myself. I will pay you. I said, but don't forget, the withholding tax also applies.
Right.
So as you're trying to avoid income tax, you might find yourself in trouble with tax authority for withholding tax purposes, and so on and so forth. So far, from the perspective of the employer, or the employees should be on paper. But I have seen, just 2 weeks ago, I was in a place where somebody said when he saw his pay slip, he was really surprised. They've taken his tax. I almost went to ask him, okay, can I see, the computation? I was in a forum. I went to speak somewhere, and the person was lamenting that when they saw his pay slip, they've taken taxes. I was like, can you give me an idea how much you earn? When the person told me, I said, ordinarily, you should be paying less taxes. So by the time I investigated, it turns out that it was, I think he has taken a loan from the company. So, people need to know which one is what.
Okay, so it was a loan that was charged.
It was a loan that the repayment on the loan that has taken. I think they had this union, cooperative. So it was the cooperative that has taken. So I said, this is clearly not, not tax. We also have instances where some employers, because there was a lot of noise about, you will pay more, you will pay more. You go to cut your hair, and my barber
is telling you to pay for tax.
Was telling me that, we have to increase our business because, they are charging us. And I was like, okay, how much do you earn in a month? I said, you are even completely exempted. If anything, you should be charging us less. So there has been a lot of misunderstanding So, and some employers too.
Even with the POS guys.
Even with the POS, they will tell you, they are charging our tax, they're taking taxes now. So many of them, out of panic, they just want to stay in a safe place. So they will just say, well, let's just charge a fixed rate on this thing. But that might not be what they are supposed to pay. So if anybody has that issue, you feel they are charging you more, especially your salary is, you are not earning up to 20 million per month. You can walk up to your HR and ask them for a breakdown of the deduction they have made on your salary, because ordinarily, if it is done well, you should be paying less.
Yes. I want to ask something. This is not me trying to turn back the hands of time.
Right.
I know last year all 19 governors in the northern part of our country had their concerns, very legitimately so. And they also put these concerns in front of President Bola Tinubu. With this tax laws being harmonized and passed into law, one would have thought all of those issues have been laid to bed. Would you talk to us about what some of those concerns were and how they have shaped this whole process?
Is one major concern.
What was that concern?
It was the sharing formula.
Sharing formula.
Sharing formula at what end?
VAT, right.
If you've been following the VAT story, even Governor Wike at the time, when he was the governor of Rivers State, he took the government to court.
Yeah, you can't do business here and pay your taxes elsewhere.
Because the argument is, if the VAT is derived from my state, why take it to Abuja? And then Abuja now decide what they pay. So it was majorly around the sharing formula. And the sharing formula is in 3 layers.
Okay.
We have it by population, we have it by derivation, and then we have it by equality. Okay.
Is it fair?
It was not fair.
Okay.
At the time, the old practice was not fair. So a state like I'm careful which state I mention, but let me use Kano. Okay, because Kano we're talking about the northern states, with very big numbers in terms of population. I was in Benue State precisely. The government invited us to come and talk about this tax reform and educate the Inland Revenue staff on how it works. And I, in one of my sessions, I pinpointed the fact that something is not adding up. If Benue State is number 12 by GDP, and then if you go by IGR, they are almost at the
last rung of the ladder.
Yeah. So I said something is not right. Why are you not? Why is the your GDP not translating into your IGR? And it just so happened that as I was having that conversation, the Commissioner for Finance walked in and he heard that comment. So when he was going to give his speech, so he was like, "Where is that gentleman?" He said, "I have a useful response." And he said, "The problem is many of what would have constituted our IGR, VAT is usually a big number when it comes to tax generation. In fact, if you are being tax audited, the tax man is happy to forgo CIT and all the other things. But you see, VAT, that's the last thing they will ever forgive." And he said, most of what we produce, oranges, fruit, yam. So because these are basic food items, they fall in the exempted list. And so a company in Lagos comes to Benue, buys our orange, converts them into fruit juice. But guess who enjoys the value-added tax? Is Lagos.
Right.
They buy our yam, they take it to some other state, convert it into flour, and at the end of the day, is Lagos that that gets the the value-added tax. So the whole idea was we don't, and when the VAT is derived, then the old scheme kind of favored population. That by population, based on Kano has this one has that, Lagos has this. So even if the economic activity did not actually take place in the state, they will just by population, you get this percentage.
That was kind of static.
That was kind of static. And then they will then say, okay, by equality. So by equality means that a percentage of what we derive as VAT, everybody shares it equally. And then a percentage of it is shared based on the population. And then another percentage is shared based on what is derived. So
you have
they have now
three layers.
So now they have put more emphasis on derivation.
Right.
That it should actually be, the emphasis should not be on population, it should be on where was that VAT derived.
Which is fair.
Which is fair.
Right.
But the northern governors at the time were of the opinion that because of insecurity challenges,
they are at a disadvantage.
That would put them at a disadvantage. So that was why they said no, it cannot be, knowing fully well. And if you want to play the devil's advocate, their concerns were, if you want it to be based on derivation, fix the insecurity issue in the region.
Right.
If we can't go to farm, if we can't attract, industries and investors because of the state of insecurity, if you don't fix that, you can't come and insist that, knowing fully well that it's almost impossible for us to be that productive because of the situation in the region. So it depends on how you are looking at it. In fact, I remember one of the senators saying, I don't know whether it was a senator or a member or a rep member, who said the whatever was dead on arrival. Well, I really commend the wisdom of the committee at the time. They were able to engage them over and over and over again. Of course, they made some compromises.
Right.
Here and then they adjusted the number a little bit.
By way of consultation.
To just, meet somewhere in the middle. So that was the major concern. But I think it's the way to go.
Right.
If we really want to grow the economy, it's the way to go. It's the way to go. Yeah. Everybody has to go back to their state. This whole idea of everybody, coming to Abuja, just, it's almost like free money. That mindset has to change.
That's the FAC allocation.
Yeah, the FAC allocation. Everybody has to go back to their state. There is no state of this country that is not abundantly blessed enough in some way or the other. Yeah. Even if you don't have the mineral resources, you have some tourist attraction of some sort. There is no state that God has not blessed abundantly. It just depends on what you make do with it. What mineral resource does Dubai have?
Right.
But look at it, it's your favorite holiday destination. So we can go back like that to the drawing board and see what we can do to drive revenue.
And also to add that most of the serving leaders at the national levels are from the north, especially on the security angles. They are usually given to the north. So I think it makes it a bit fair. But let's talk about the use of the mechanism and systems, structures that are put in place. Especially with the fact that Nigeria, or do I say our leaders, somehow are always want to develop cold feet when it comes to technology and digital, tools. When the whole push for electronic transmission of results came, a lot of them frowned at it, saying we're not ready. There's always this cold feet to advanced technology. And I feel like these systems, collection of taxes especially, would need a digitalized, system to make it more effective. Because when this whole tax reform came into law, people had concerns on how do I pay my tax? And then they said, use your NIN. At some point they said, no, it's not NIN. There has just been the back and forth on, trying to make the system smooth, the whole flow, make it flow smoothly as that. So do you think that we have innovative leaders enough that are able to accommodate technology to drive tax reform? How prepared are we? If we say we don't want electronic transmission of results because we cannot do it, because we give excuses like networks and all of this and that, do you think our leaders would really make this work? Say in the next 2 years, we'll get to a point where I just pick up my phone, I'm able to use my tax ID, pay my tax. I don't need to go to any FIRS office. I don't need to go to anybody to submit these things. Make it seamless.
It's sincerely part of, it was part of the emphasis of this reform. So if you ask me, how has it been in 3 months? It's not been easy. It's been rough. I remember vividly, we have an association. It's called the Tax Practitioners, FCT Tax Practitioners Association. I remember that we had to engage them several times. First of all, the law took effect from January of this year. And whatever impact that the law should have for companies should actually take effect from next year in terms of company annual return. For VAT, it takes effect immediately because that's a monthly thing. For payee, it takes effect immediately because that's a monthly thing. For withholding tax, it takes effect immediately. But in terms of company income tax, which is the annual return, which means that the first time we are going to be able to measure the impact is when 2026 financial year ends, and the time we'll be filing that is next year. But guess what happened? On Tax Pro Max, so if you have not filed return for 2024, of course there are penalties based on the old laws. The penalty is 25,000 the first month and then 5,000 every other month. Now, we just noticed that in January, if you have an outstanding return to file, for some people it was generating close to $500,000 in penalty for them, which was not based on the actual law that was supposed to be applied. They are already using the new law, applying it retrospectively. And then we engaged them and said, no, that is not what the law says. The law took effect only 1st of January. It cannot apply to previous years. Again, in the old law, the exemption threshold for companies was 25 million. If you were doing business 25 million and below, you are completely exempted. But anything above 25 million, you are in the tax net. But guess what? We notice also that when we file return for client and the threshold of their turnover is below 100 million, it was giving them 0.
Which was something that
was a disservice to them, because that is only applicable in the new reform. So we now told them that you guys are actually even losing money.
Yes.
So that means if I file a return for somebody in 2025, a 2025 return, and let's say the turnover was like 95 million, Tax Pro Max automatically was just computing 0.
Wow. It didn't even make sense.
It didn't make sense. So, and we're like, you had enough time to have updated your system, and at the point they were even telling us that there was nothing they could do about it because that was the system that generated it. But somebody put the algorithm there. It's just going back and putting the algorithm right. So it took a long pushback here and there, because we had, and we know fully well that if you file a return for a tax payer that has maybe a turnover of 95 million and the system reads 0, we know very well that they will come for an audit later and they will slam you penalties and interest. They will not even take cognizance of the fact that it's their own system error. So we didn't want that to happen. Eventually they resolved it. We still have instances where the platform is down. It's still happening even up till tomorrow. There have been quite a number of improvements. I also know that they are building a brand new platform now. They did a demo for us already to see what it will look like. We loved it. I mean, some of the improvement is that you can file in different currency, because that's a big issue too. Right. If I'm earning in Naira, let's say I have an organization and a part of my earning comes in Naira, a part is in FX or in any other currency. The new platform will allow you to file in different currency at the same time. Before now, you either file in Naira, or you file in dollar, or you file in pound. So there's some improvement, but I just really hope that they will allow it to run. And what we have also seen in time past is that once that administration leaves power, a new administration comes in, and then they come up with a new platform. They come up with a new platform because I don't know why. Maybe for political reason they want to bring their own people into the system. Before you know it, we start all over again. I hope there will be some sort of continuity, this time, that they will allow the system, because it takes time. You have to build on it. And I know that we have the capacity. Look at Remita. Remita is a world-class global platform. Built by Nigerians. So if the goodwill is there and we encourage, the people that are behind it to do what they know to do best, I know we have the resources to do it in terms of manpower and all of that. We have what it takes to do it. We just need to allow it, and the disadvantage of technology is that there's no hiding out, no hiding place. It's perhaps the reason why maybe our leaders don't want it to work. If we fully digitize it, nobody can hide. If the system works the way it is designed to work, right from when you go to the grocery store and you are buying that thing, you can hide your revenue, but you cannot hide your expense.
Right.
So you can say, okay, I only made 5 million this year. Say, okay, no problem. But the only issue is that we have you on record that you spent up to 50 million this year. So something is made. So you have to explain. Did you take a loan? So you have to show workings. You have
to show workings.
Yeah, you have to show workings, and that's why perhaps the leaders don't want it to work, because it will expose them.
So isn't this a situation of putting the cart before the
horse?
Because all of this should have been considered before implementing this law. You can't put up a system or put up a law that eventually has challenges in between, and there's no how you can get the best of results from it. If you say we're trying to move away from dependence on oil and all to be able to generate tax, and we have a system that is not buoyant enough to accommodate the changes, you really wouldn't get the best. At the end of the day, you have to start explaining to Nigerians, we don't have this. People still see the bad roads. They still see that I can't have access to water because the system is not built strongly. And how we have politicians that say, okay, because of this, when it comes to other aspects of, the economy, of governance, especially political aspects and elections, they say, let us wait. Yeah. But when it comes to systems or matters like this, they are willing to have faith in the system. For me, it doesn't really add up. So as a tax expert, what would be your advice to these government officials and even the president if he's watching this?
Okay. Nothing new that we've not said before. No new advice that we've not given before. We just hope, we hope that they are listening, and we hope that at some point they will use the advice. We have to prioritize our spending. We just have to. I'm currently doing a research work on public debt and infrastructural development, and in fact, it was like an eye-opener. You will see that, debt might not be bad in itself, but it depends on what you are using it for. Thankfully, we've seen a few things here and there, but compared to the need of the population, it's still a far cry from what is needed. People will be more and more willing to pay their dues and pay their taxes when government is by far more accountable. I feel there needs to be more transparency and accountability compared to what we used to have. I've seen it once in Lagos, even though it didn't end well, where I think, was it Governor Fashola, so they tried to even put it on the website. And we saw that that was when we discovered how much was spent on a borehole. That you remember when he went for a screening. Right. That was one of the questions that he was asked at the time. But there just has to be a way. And I also believe strongly that sometimes we over-labor issues at the federal level. How about our councillors? How about our local government chairmen? How about our governors? I even feel in my own opinion, I think the bulk of the issue lies with the states. Because at the end of the day, the federal government is not everywhere. But if everybody can hold their governors accountable, okay, show us what you have done with the revenue. If we see that, okay, look at, we've transformed schools, we've built roads, not just road that is built only in one, constituency alone. People can see the impact of the road. Clearly, people will be more willing, it will improve voluntary compliance. But when you see that you are doing all of this, and there's an anomaly in the system, I mean, I have a taxpayer now that from one tax office, we have maybe over 8 letters from the same building, from different desks. So, this one is for VAT and withholding tax monitoring exercise. Oh, this one is a review of assessment. Oh, this one is another monitoring. This one is audit. This one is that. From the same building. So we have to call them that, guys, can you guys talk to yourselves? If we spend all our time responding to this letter, the company will not do any other thing. So, and at the end of the day, if you are paying more, you are more likely to be in their view. You are the one they will come for. And there are people who are not even paying at all, that they are supposed to go and get in touch with and get them to pay. So at the end of the day, it's like, it's the people, the few people in the tax net, they are the one that, get to pay more and more and more. And if you overcharge these people to a point where they cannot even run the business again, so what will become of them? So these are some of the issues. I don't even think we need to even raise taxes in terms of rate and all of that. We just need to get more people into the tax net and then show accountability of what you are doing with the money. Election is coming now. Somebody was saying, okay, all this borrowing that we hope is not because of election that is coming next year, because we need to somehow look for money to do elections and all of that. I don't know because I don't have fact, but it's some of the things we've seen in the past, where once election year is coming, we just see all kind of. We see this thing. I mean, there's this organization called Budget. They have made attempt to even make public how much was allocated for a particular project. Number one, how much was disbursed, and then what percentage of what is disbursed can we measure? And we've seen projects where there's not even anything on the ground, and the project was supposedly, commissioned. I mean, these are some of the things that...
Issues of transparency. We're going to transition to our second conversation in a minute, but I just want to ask you this last question on this issue of tax reforms. Recently, I mean, you've commended the committee quite a number of times in the course of this conversation, led as it then was by Taiwo Oyedele. But now he's Minister of State for Finance. Recently, he did admit that there had been errors in the tax laws, and those errors will be addressed as we make progress. What are your concerns as a Nigerian, as a tax expert?
Yeah, it was very painful and very regrettable. I have maybe up to 4 versions of this so-called tax reform, until the National Assembly finally, came to the rescue. That in itself, what it did to that whole process, I mean, I think it took us back maybe like 50 steps back, because there have been a lot of noise, a lot of orientation and all of that, a lot of consultation and stakeholder engagement. But just the minute we saw that there were inconsistent provisions, and again, it is because I don't want to believe that, it is all done in bad taste. I just want to think that it's the process leading to it that was somehow faulty. Why are we still using manual, even our lawmaking process? Why are we still using manual process? If the process was fully digitized. So we saw different definitions. There are 4 acts. We saw different definitions across the 4 acts. We saw, like, one of the very common examples was this threshold: is it 50 million? Is it 100 million? At the time, before we now finally all agreed for 100 million. If you look at the Nigerian Tax Act, it gave a different definition at the time. It gave a different definition. It uses the word small business, and it uses a threshold of 50 million. That a small business is a business, a company that is having a turnover of 50 million or less, and then net asset of 250 million. But when you go into Nigerian Tax Administration Act, then they started talking about small company, and then 100 million. So we started asking, is a small business different from a small company? I did this. Why are we creating problems?
Right.
Why can't we just be consistent with the definitions? So if we want to use small business, let us stay with small business. If we want to use a small company, let us use small company. And then why are we having different amounts? You're already creating a loophole in the law. We also saw instances of some definitions in terms of who is a taxable person. That is a community, a taxable person. Who is a community? Resident association of an estate. Old school, old student association. And things like that. We had in some provision where they were included in the list. Then when we're talking about some other things, they were not, included. They were not included. So the question is our communities, are they supposed to be filing returns and all of that? So we had quite a number like that. We also had instances in terms of tax disputes. Right. At what level does it end? Does it involve, can a minister of finance get involved? We also had those provisions. And we had things that, and we saw that even the National Assembly came and said, this is not the version that we forwarded to the president for us. But eventually, I think the most debated aspect of the errors were kind of dealt with. But there are still one or two areas that the law may not have been perfect, but we just hope that, like I said, maybe after another 1 or 2 years, let's come back to the drawing board and just look for a way to quickly amend those areas so that we don't create, because the only person that benefits from this loophole is the taxman. Because the taxman will stay with the interpretation that suits his own narrative, and that will put the taxpayers at a disadvantage.
All right, I think it's time we slide to the second conversation, which has to do with borrowing. You already made allusion to that a while ago about how we borrow and things like that. In the case of Nigeria, it appears we're on a borrowing spree. And then the excuse we always hear from those in the corridors of power, especially those who midwife or administer public finance system, is that, well, there's no country that's not indebted. From China to US, they all borrow, so why would Nigeria be an exception? Help us understand whether or not we are being fiscally irresponsible in terms of how we borrow as a country.
So, of course, we've been running the deficit budget forever, and even at that, we still, every other month, you hear the president has sent supplementary, he has sent an additional request, a request to the House for them to approve some amount that they want to borrow. I think we can do better. And I think if we're going to be honest with ourselves, like you said, I also agree that borrowing is not the problem, but what we are doing with it. But even at that, I feel we can do a whole lot better than what we are doing. When we are borrowing to eat, when we are borrowing to pay salaries, then we are being fiscally irresponsible. When we are borrowing,
but is that the case as it stands today?
Yes, that is the case. When we are borrowing to sort out our recurrent expenditure, that is the challenge that we have all had. That is the challenge that most analysts have had. If we're borrowing to finance infrastructure, right? It can be excused to the extent, and the goal is that in the long run, this infrastructure that we are investing in will have a way of even giving us some returns that we can probably even use to even offset, some of these loans in the future. But even though at the point of borrowing, we are told we want to borrow to, look at the coastal highway that is going on, the railway project and all of that. We've seen some impact, but you still have to. It's not the best that we can do. It's not the best that we can do. If we, there's a whole lot like this taxation. If we do it well and we administer it well, there's a whole lot of potential without even hurting the people. There's a whole lot more that we can, that we can harness from taxes. without necessarily even, like I said, hurting the people. But if we don't make up, I think it's a mindset thing. If we don't make up our mind that we can do life and we can do life well, without necessarily running to China, running to all of these places to go and borrow, I think we are going to, I don't know, by the time we end this administration, I don't know what the numbers will look like, at the end of this administration. It's quite scary. And we need to do something about it. Someone said the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over,
expecting the same results,
and expecting a different result. I think we need to do better, and it has to be like a matter of emergency. We have to look elsewhere.
Okay, looking at it really, carefully, I may want to think that somehow our government or our president is seeking ties with maybe international bodies, some sort of relationship, and borrowing could be a way of patronizing patronage, especially with the fact that it can be a give and take something, right? So this is how I can bond with you, this is how I can benefit you, so that when you come to me, I can also get, or you can get what you want from me. So some sort of relationship. I also look at it from the perspective of, maybe government failure, maybe the easy way out, maybe they're not wanting to do the work. And as I'm trying to analyze all of this, I'm just trying to see how a government or our leaders will tell us, come and pay your tax. In the midst of it, we're still borrowing here and there. So does it even make sense? I'm just wondering, is it okay to say, okay, can we cut them the slack? Let's see how we can benefit from this other international. What are the benefits, indeed? If it's something that we can even explore and get some sort of result from it, are we getting it in any way? Let's look at it in that perspective.
It's not adding up. It's not making sense, at least to me. If you look at the exchange rate issue, of course, oil importation was contributing hugely to the number. The next to that is debt servicing. Where do our efforts really go? If you look at it, the bulk of it is also on debt servicing. So you cannot, in one breath, want to stabilize the exchange rate, and then we still get to spend hugely on debt servicing.
Right.
Like external debt, to be precise, servicing. So it makes no sense. And that's where sometimes when I like to say this on a lighter note, that maybe in Nigeria, when we've read all the economic textbooks and all the finance textbook and all the financial laws, we probably have to write a different kind of textbook for Nigeria, because our things seem to be very different. Even if you look at the exchange rate, going by economic principle, by now you will expect that the number should have crashed, because now that we've removed subsidy and all of that, you will expect that by now maybe we should be somewhere maybe around 350, 400 per dollar, but it's still not the case. With all the government policies, you will look at the policies on paper that, okay, sometimes I ask myself, because I don't want to just be a critic for, just blindly.
Right.
Okay, if I were in their position, what would I have done differently? You look at it textbook wise. They are doing what they are supposed to do, but then it's not adding up somewhere. Like this dollar issue. One reason I discovered personally is that most of the CBN policies and all of that is not really affecting the exchange rate, because the bulk of the dollar is outside the bank.
Where are they? In the hands of bureau de change operators?
In hand of people. People are keeping holding. You need to
speculate
for political meetings and see how people bring dollars in bank. They are not in the, so no matter the policy of government, it will not affect them. They will just keep it. And at the end of the day, the law of demand and supply will come in. So if you look at in many ways. So it's really not adding up.
But it's only like it's a hopeless situation. Is there no way around such a system?
He has to be.
Honestly, there can be a way, but I think we're not ready. Because the people that will be affected, they are not you and I. They are the big wigs, and there are people that even when they get exposed or if someone whistleblowers on them, just one call from the villa can end the whole, say no, what are you doing there? If care is not taken, even the team that goes on that operation, they might relieve them of their jobs.
Right.
So it's doable, but I honestly don't think that we are ready, because we will be ready when the leader, using the airport example that I cited,
right.
when the minister said even the president will now pay for his parking toll fee, that nobody is exempted. That sent a very clear message.
Right.
If we use one or two big ways as scapegoats, and they know that nobody is above the law, I think everybody will adjust. But that's why I think we are not ready. We are not ready.
Talking about, we can always debate that. But there's this concern about how that from time to time, we see the federal government saying, look, we want to borrow from the Nigerian Stock Exchange, we want to borrow from pensions funds, especially as it has to do with infrastructure. The most recent now, if my memory serves me correctly, is borrowing from dormant accounts and all of that. Some experts like yourself say, well, the law supports it, it's legal to do, but it has been controversial. It has been a subject of debate. Is it a sign that government is overwhelmed in terms of ramping up revenue?
Oh yeah, that's a public knowledge. Even the whole of this tax reform and everything is because
it's from a place of desperation.
Of course, we have a revenue challenge. That's clear. That we've always had a revenue challenge, and this issue of pension is something that is very, very emotional anytime I talk about it.
Right.
Because until we are convinced that they will number one, be transparent about it, and they will be accountable. Because what we have seen in the past is that when people now retire and they need to access their benefits, the benefit is not there. We had a training earlier in the year with Federal Mortgage Bank, and part of the thing we identified also was this pension fund. Now, okay, why are we not putting some of this fund, in mortgage? At least that way we are sure we are using the money for the right purpose. But when we take money from pension fund, for political reasons, and then at the end of the day, the money is used for election campaign, it's really sad. Because if you're taking money, it has to be some sort of investment of some sort. Okay, we are taking this amount we are borrowing this amount from pension fund, and then if it's done well, it should benefit even the fund, which means that not only are you paying back, but you are paying back, with some interest, which means that, rather than the money lying fallow with the pension fund, they can put that money into some secured investment. And government, being a very good source of such investment, and then in the long run, it comes back with returns. But that has not been what we have seen in the practice. We've seen this money borrowed, and they don't come back. And at the end of the day, it is somebody's sweat, that is going. And at the end of the day, pensioners are there and they don't have access to their benefits. And that's why people will always be skeptical. It's better just leave the money. It's better the money is not growing than
let's be sure the money is there.
Let's even be sure the money is there.
Incidentally, time for us to go on with all of this, but I would like to say a big thank you to you, Johnson Olugbero, for coming to share this brilliant insight with us this morning. We've been talking with Johnson Olugbero, who is a tax expert and doubles as the lead partner at Blue Line Sources. We'll take a break now, serve you breakfast. We'll back shortly to bring you the final lap of the program. Incidentally, today we understand we've made akara and pap for you.
Hello everyone and welcome to Taste and Texture. Today we're going to prepare a delicious Nigerian delicacy and we will be demonstrating it from scratch. Our delicacy on this episode is beans cake and pap. I am your creative chef, Saadatu Garba. Beans cake, popularly known as akara, and pap is one of the traditional breakfast options in a Nigerian household. Akara and pap is a hearty morning meal for most homes because of its light and filling nature. It is a delicacy made from beans, while pap is made from maize. I hope you enjoy the recipe. Ingredients: beans, red bell peppers and scotch bonnets, onions, vegetable oil, salt and water. The ingredients for pap include pap, water, canned or powdered milk, and sugar. To prepare, wash and peel your beans. Add your beans, onions and peppers into the blender. Add a little water and blend till smooth. After blending, transfer into a bowl and use a mixer or a spatula to beat the mixture to make it fluffy. Add some onions to your oil to make it flavorful. Fry your akara in batches until golden brown and transfer to strain the excess oil. To make your pap, put the raw pap into a bowl. Add a little bit of cold water, then mix. Boil your water and quickly add into the mixture while turning to avoid lumps. Add your milk and sugar and your pap is ready. That's it on today's episode of Taste and Texture, and I hope you will try this recipe on your own. I'll see you again on the next creative recipe. This is Saadatu Garba saying take care of yourself.
Well, there you have it, the discussions on the states of new tax laws and its implementation. Then, of course, the culture of borrowing that we have adopted here for a while now. But in all of this, for me, like it is for tens of millions of Nigerians, it is about what we can lay our hands on and say this is what government is doing with all of this revenue. Because it's amazing how every other time citizens hear about humongous amounts, figures. Some of these figures almost make your head turn, but there's next to nothing to show for impacts. And we mentioned some of those areas: housing, which is shelter, for example. What else? Things around health. And then you talk about education. Like, again, our guest mentioned, schools are resumed now. Some other presence will resume next week. Families, for the most part, are agitated because whether you like it or not, the bulk of this work should also be done by government, and that's why people pay tax. So if these issues are still left for citizens to have to deal with on their own, then the incentive to pay tax will be extremely low.
Well, of course, everybody has their part to play. As much as I believe, Nigerians should play their part, they should also get themselves equipped with knowledge. Know what is expected of you and what is expected of the government. Right. Again, speak out when you don't see what is expected of the government while you have done your own part. Yeah, we have information at our fingertips. You don't wait for the government to tell you, oh, it's done this way. Sometimes it's quite ambiguous to understand, so you just prefer to just leave it. Right. I don't want to know. Then it's just okay. If I can do, if I don't want to do, I will sneak away. I'll find a way out. So like here, mention some people go to borrow money and see that a source of or a route, an escape route, right? But you don't have to go that route. You can do what is right and equip yourself. So when you're going to pay, you're asking, what am I expecting? Right. Ask if this leaders see how serious Nigerians are to demand knowledge or to know for accountability, they would act better. So let everyone do their part and equip yourself with knowledge to know what the government is going to do for you.
The tax laws require us to be knowledgeable, at least about basics. We don't have to necessarily be as knowledgeable about people like Olugbero, but we can do our part really, at least basics. When necessary, use the help of an expert. That also is very crucial. That's our program for you today. We'd like to say a big thank you to you for investing a chunk of your morning with us, as always, here on Global Morning. I'm Uyi Agmofwewe.
And I am Priscilla Ovasi, wishing you an amazing day ahead. Bye.